Coming up today, a top U.S. commander says Washington is in discussions about the potential deployment of the U.S. THAAD missile defense system to the Korean peninsula to counter North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Wrapping up trilateral vice minister talks with the United States, Korea and Japan vow to make efforts to improve their ties. This despite Seoul's frustrations with Tokyo's distorted perception of history. Plus, the combined market capitalization of listed Korean firms jumps more than 10% this year to rank 11th in the world. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 17th of April. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks as always for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, senior U.S. military officials have testified once again that they've been discussing deploying a controversial U.S. missile defense system to the Korean peninsula. This comes as North Korea has declared that it will not give up its nuclear program as long as the U.S. continues to pose a threat. Na Hyung-kyung has more.
The U.S. military has been mulling over a potential terminal high-altitude area defense or THAAD battery deployment to South Korea. That's according to U.S. Pacific Commander Admiral Samuel Locklear during a U.S. Senate committee hearing on Thursday, Washington time. He said the U.S. has made progress with Japan and South Korea in terms of bringing ballistic missile defense capabilities to the Asia-Pacific region. Although not elaborating on what the discussions entailed and whom he meant by we, he said, quote, "We have been in discussions about a potential deployment of a THAAD battery on the Korean peninsula." In response, an unnamed South Korean Defense Ministry official said Friday that Locklear probably meant internal discussions because the Korean military has not engaged in any kind of talks about THAAD with the U.S. However, when General Curtis Scaparrotti, the commander of U.S. Forces Korea, who was also present at the hearing, was asked whether South Korea and the U.S. would push ahead with the plan despite China's strong opposition, he replied, both countries seem to be taking various other impacts into account, adding that the decision process was underway. The hearing comes as North Korea's Defense Minister Hyun Yong-chol vowed to continue improving the regime's nuclear capabilities. At an international security conference in Moscow on Thursday, Hyun said the, quote, aggressive nature of the U.S. has not changed, adding that Pyongyang is ready to launch any kind of war if Washington provokes the regime. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Korea and Japan have agreed to make efforts to improve their strained relations despite their intensely troubled shared history. The agreement was made at a trilateral vice ministers meeting between Korea, the United States and Japan in Washington on Thursday. The countries were represented by Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Jo Tae-yong, his Japanese counterpart Akitaka Saiki and U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken. However, despite efforts to reach some common ground, there was no noticeable progress in resolving the historical issues. The meeting is part of Washington's efforts to improve Seoul-Tokyo ties, which have been sour for years due to Japan's attempts to whitewash history. Korea is especially frustrated with Japan's lack of atonement for its sexual enslavement of tens of thousands of Korean women before and during World War II. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is coming under fire for his alleged heavy-handed treatment of one of his most outspoken critics. A political pundit on a well-known TV program claims Abe's inner circle had him booted off the show. Watchers say this is merely the latest in a string of efforts to restrict the freedom of the press in Japan. Son Jung-in has more.
A leading Japanese political commentator who had been a regular panelist on a popular TV news program has revealed that he was yanked off the air due to pressure from the Shinzo Abe administration. Shigeaki Koga, a vocal critic of the Japanese Prime Minister, held up a piece of paper saying, "I am not Abe," during his last live appearance. Koga, who used to work for Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, said he was given a severe ticking off by Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga and other members of the Prime Minister's office for his critical views on Japan's bureaucratic society. Controversy grew after the ruling Liberal Democratic Party's policy committee decided to summon and question the show's broadcaster TV Asahi over Koga's claims, as well as Japan's public broadcaster NHK over alleged factual errors in a news report. Although the ruling party claims the meeting was not to intervene in the media coverage but to discuss recent events, some watchers view it as a worrying trend.
The ruling party's involvement in the situation is contradictory to democracy and freedom of the press.
This is not the first time the Abe administration has been embroiled in controversy over editorial independence. Earlier this week, a German newspaper correspondent based in Tokyo slammed the Japanese government, saying Tokyo had suppressed an article he had written on Abe's historical revisionism. 손정인, Arirang News.
UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon says he's embarrassed by allegations made by a recently deceased Korean businessman. The man in question, Song Wan-jong, claimed before his suicide earlier this month that he had become the target of a prosecution probe because he was close to the UN chief. Ban told Korea-based Yonhap news agency that the case has nothing to do with him, adding that he knew Song but did not have a close relationship with him. Now, Song had claimed that Prime Minister Lee Wang-gu targeted the investigation at him because of his closeness to the UN chief. He said he suspected it was a move to prevent Ban from running in Korea's presidential election in 2017. The UN chief has been talked about as a potential presidential candidate, although he has never said anything about running himself. Now, with by-elections less than 2 weeks away, Korea's rival parties are on the campaign trail this Friday. Although the campaign period officially opened on Thursday, stumping was subdued out of respect for the one-year anniversary of the Seoul Ho ferry disaster. On this Friday, ruling Saenuri Party leader Kim Moo-sung plans to visit 3 out of 4 constituencies where by-elections will be held on April 29th. He's crisscrossing the country, starting in Gwangju in the southwest and then on to Ganghwa-do Island and finishing up in Seoul's Gwanak-B district. Main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy leader Moon Jae-in, on the other hand, is spending the whole day in the hotly contested Gwanak-B area, aiming to ensure the Liberal Party grabs that seat. Now, some good news for the Korean stock market. The benchmark Kospi opened higher on this Friday and is up about 2 points as we speak now. And with the Korean stock market now ranking 11th in the world, investment banks are forecasting a brighter outlook. Our Shin Se-min tells us more.
Korea's total market capitalization, combining the values of all listed companies, is the 11th highest in the world, up more than 13% this year from the end of last year. The data was provided by bourse operator Korea Exchange and Bloomberg on Friday. It shows that Korea's combined market cap hit over $1.34 trillion as of Wednesday, making it the 4th best performing stock market among the world's leading 15. And Korea's benchmark stock index hit its highest level in 3.5 years, closing at this year's high of 2,139 points this Thursday, breaking out of the 1,700 to 2,100 point range that stood for years. Riding on the trend, foreign investment banks offered optimistic outlooks. Morgan Stanley projected that the Kospi will rise to 2,200 points based on an expectation that Korea's central bank would cut the key interest rate again in the second quarter of the year, putting the domestic economy on the recovery track. The U.S. Investment Bank even raised its per-share earnings growth projection for Korea to 11% from the 7% previously estimated. UK-based Barclays went a step further, forecasting that the key index will reach 2,300 points this year, strongly backed by improving corporate earnings momentum. Bank of America Merrill Lynch projected Korean company earnings will rise on the back of cheaper raw materials and a weaker Korean won generated by a series of rate cuts since August last year. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics widened its share of the global smartphone market in the first 3 months of the year, extending its gap over Apple. Global market tracker TrendForce says the Korean firm's sales volume in the January to March period accounted for 27.8% of the global market, up more than 3 percentage points from the previous quarter. The report forecasts Samsung Electronics to increase its share even further in the second quarter due to the recent release of its latest Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge smartphones. TrendForce says Samsung is expected to ship more than 80 million units during that period, and Apple around 45 million. Now, take a walk through any of Seoul's bustling shopping districts and you'll see street after street lined with cosmetics stores. And while the competition is red hot, business is booming thanks largely to the large influx of Chinese tourists who want to look more like their favorite Korean celebrity. Kim Min-ji reports.
Foreigners are increasingly being exposed to Korean TV dramas and K-pop, and local celebrities with flawless complexions have ignited a desire for Korean-made cosmetics. The domestic cosmetics market is expected to grow 7% to about $11 billion this year, driven mostly by the boom in Chinese tourists snapping up the latest products. So are Korean cosmetics really that good? In a survey of over 800 foreigners, the majority cited the wide variety of products for reason of purchase, while others like Korean brands for what they can do.
The quality of Korean cosmetics is great compared to the relatively low prices. There's also a wide variety of makeup available. I especially like lipsticks and primer products.
Exports of Korean cosmetics are also on the rise, reaching nearly $2 billion in 2014, up more than 50% from a year earlier. And the boom is bringing good times to Korea's cosmetics companies. Amore Pacific, a local cosmetics giant, has seen its share price more than double from a year ago, while LG Household and Healthcare has also seen significant growth, giving them more reason to expand their stores.
Practically every other store on this street in Seoul's popular Myeongdong district is a cosmetics brand. However, even with all the competition, each of these stores do a roaring trade.
About 1,000 tourists visit our store each day, and Chinese tourists are our biggest customers, accounting for more than 75% of our sales.
Seoul's Samcheong-dong and Garo-sugil have also become hotspots for cosmetic shoppers. These areas had previously been famous for their fancy cafes and fashion boutiques, but many are being pushed out by cosmetics chains. Experts believe the upward trend will continue for some time, but say local companies need new strategies in the long run.
Korean cosmetics are limited to the Asian market as the products are developed for Asian skin. They need to be able to expand their consumers by taking advantage of the Hallyu boom, such as in the Middle East, and work to establish their own unique position.
The professor added that Korean-made cosmetics also need to gain international recognition as a global country of origin, like France and Italy. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Rice, a staple food for Koreans, may be in short supply in the decades to come due to global warming. A study by the Korea Rural Economic Institute says the country's rice production will decrease by around 1 million tons, down to 1.8 million tons by the year 2050. This outlook zeroes in on Korea's self-sufficiency rice ratio, which would dip below 50% in terms of agricultural output, raising national food security risks and increasing dependency on imported rice. The Institute recommends a long-term management strategy, including measures such as investing in agricultural infrastructure and developing rice varieties resistant to climate change. The sequel to the highly successful Avengers movie hits local theatres next week. Will it live up to the hype? We don't know yet. But even if it doesn't in terms of entertainment value, it could add up in terms of how many tourists it brings into Korea. A number of action scenes were shot in and around Seoul, prompting government officials to speculate that it will bring in lots more tourists to the country. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Captain America dodges cars near the Hangang River, while Scarlett Johansson speeds through the busy streets of Seoul. These are scenes from Avengers Age of Ultron, the sequel to the hit superhero film opening in Korea next Thursday. The movie is expected to be a great success here, as the first Avengers movie attracted 7 million local viewers back in 2012.
I really like the fact that some of the scenes are from Korea. I can't wait to see the next Avengers movie.
The movie is not only expected to lift ticket sales at box offices, the government believes it will also boost the number of foreign tourists. The Korean Film Council estimates 620,000 tourists will visit the country because of the movie, generating a projected $80.4 million for the local economy.
Korea doesn't have as many tourist attractions as China, but I hope the movie will bring a lot of foreign tourists to Korea.
However, one local expert warns that the hype surrounding the benefits to Korea may be too much. The scenes don't exactly show Korea in its best light, what with buildings crashing down and the Avengers team taking a blow.
This scene where Scarlett Johansson speeds through Seoul is not real, and the scene was put together later. That's why I'm beginning to question whether the movie will boost tourism to locations in the film.
Only time will tell if the Avengers sequel will bring tourists to the country. But one thing's for sure, local fans can't seem to wait. The Korean Film Council says 220,000 tickets have already been sold, an uncommonly high number just a week before the Korea premiere. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. And wherever you're watching us, stay tuned to Arirang as well. We'll be back at the same time on Monday. We do hope to see you then. Goodbye.